let's see. Oops. And
I can also repost the assignment, or whatever you want to call it, the exercise, into chat. So I'm doing that now.
great. I mean, okay, let's see.
I decided to be cute and spell objects the way Art Spiegelman spells comics.
With an X.
Yeah.
Very good.
He loves the X-Men.
All right, let me take a look. I'm going to open up that screen and just make sure that it's accessible to everybody. It's in the public area, and then we'll get started. Yeah, it looks like it's in the public feed. Okay, that's good. So you got it ready. Okay, we're going to start. I'm going to start recording. Share my screen. Welcome, everybody. And as usual, we love to hear where you're coming from. We love to hear what temperature it is, or how much wind you've got, or anything like that. Let me see if I can find my intro screens. Oops. Yeah, can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Comics. Okay, well, welcome. It's Friday night. It's cold as heck in most places. It's a couple days before Christmas. What a special night. We believe in comics. Friday night workshops. Welcome at the Sequential Artists Workshop. We're a school. We're a nonprofit. You can find us at learn.sawcomics.org. And I'm going to tell you about Josh's course that's starting on January 5th, I think, unless it's the 8th, something like that. So it's really soon, and it's going to be really exciting. Josh is starting a class in January. Leela Corman's starting a class in January. We have some weekly classes happening ongoing. Next week in this spot, Tom Motley is going to be doing Dare Doodles. That's something he does for SVA. All right, what else do we got? Social media. Friday Night Comics is the hashtag we share with. You can tag us at Comics Workshop. I'm pretty sure Josh is Josh M. Bayer, but I'll put that in the chat. And you can find us at members.sawcomics.org and do more sharing there. We post a recap every weekend, and we have lots of people sort of showing what they did. Let's see. Thank you for donating. If you donated for tonight's workshop or any of them, it really helps us keep these free to you and keeps the instructors coming and able to keep themselves supported a little bit. We do a lot of other things for the community, for Arts World. We take sustaining donations. I'll tell you more about that some other time. We're still sort of working out getting all those logistics there, but there you can see some of the things that we sort of have to pay for every year and what it takes to run a comic school and all that stuff. So like Popeye, what are you gonna do with your $50,000, Popeye? You can spend it in a crap game, or you can donate a tiny bit of it to keep arts alive and the sort of community building alive that's happening here, and the affirmation that everybody gets here. So please no inappropriate speech or imagery. Keep it PG-13, please. Enjoy. Oh my God, we have Josh Bayer here. That's Josh's website, Josh's Instagram. I'm going to stop sharing. You can't tell that I'm wearing a Josh Bayer t-shirt, but you'll just have to trust me. Also, I've got Abysmalation, great new book. All right, Josh, I'm gonna be in the chat. I'm gonna summarizing things you do. I'm gonna spotlight you right now, but if you want the other one spotlighted, let me know and I'll just be in the chat.
Okay, great. Hey everybody, welcome. So I'm gonna get right into it because we only have so much time. I tried to pare down the lesson that I want us to do to some to its basic components. If I have any returning students here, some of you may have heard some of these lessons before, but hopefully I'll mix them together in a way that's a little bit, I haven't done exactly the same way twice. So as far as the assignment, I'll read you what I wrote. Well, it's way back in the chat. It says, the theme of tonight is going to be about drawing objects. And you can take this and run with it. You can make it seasonal. A good way to start a comic plot is to make a list. When I start thinking of objects that we exchange in the seasons, I start thinking about things I've struggled to buy, things that I always wanted, but I never had, disappointing gifts, disappointing reactions I've had from people. And I'll talk more about this in the class and how what I'm going to show you applies to drawing objects. Broad subject matter, but I'll tie it all together. So 1 second while I go to my drive. Okay, first thing I want to talk about, and apologize, I'm going to have to share my whole desktop. It's a new stupid thing that Zoom started to do, because if I go to full screen now and I don't share my whole screen, it'll blank out. So this is a Robert Armstrong image. He invented Mickey Rat. And you can see that the snowman is like way in focus, and the outside of the door, the outside of the refrigerator is really delineated and very solid looking. And the food inside of it, it's not meant to show up in exactly the same way. It's bleached out by the light, or it's not as important to as a snowman is, so they want to bounce it to pop him out. 1 second, I'm looking for my toolbar. Chat, it's weird. Oh, I see. Yeah. It'll pop up in a second. So, 1 sec. There's this little thing, this little drawing tool that's supposed to pop up in Zoom. And again, it's some kind of weird updatey thing they've done in Zoom lately. I just might have to pause and how soon I can start drawing. But like I was saying, he is very solid looking, and the food inside the refrigerator is like a little bit less detailed. So I got really into this theme of how things that we read on the page, the thing that the characters inside of a comic, how they often are blown out or distorted a little bit. A real expert, my partner Hyena has been doing, I think, the best example of a comic within a comic in her story that she's doing right now. And we'll see that in a minute. In this comic, when you see the evening news here, you can see that the lettering becomes gibberish. It actually looks like Herb Trimpe might have written this backwards, but it's not meant to be read. And it's not a case of it being in Russian either. He just knows that he wants you to quickly look at this and then just understand that there's text here that people can read. You don't need to know what it is. This on this Little Orphan Annie, the newspaper here, it doesn't, parts of it don't have any text on it. I've never seen a newspaper that just has a blank side like this. But that's another cool thing you can do in comics is you can make something blank, and if somebody drops it, the implication that there's printing on it, you'll basically see it. So here's another great example of text within text. I saw this years ago, back when I was at SVA, when I was Tom's student. And I remember just really being hypnotized by Ditko's method here. When you look at the text here, he made up his own alphabet, like he's the Zodiac killer. And 1 second, I'm in Chrome. Let me fiddle with something, everybody, really quickly. I'm just going to open this back up in Safari. Spider-Man is a coward. So he flees in terror, and then you look at the gibberish, and I can say it's just a made-up alphabet. So it works so beautifully. It just makes Spider-Man and the other characters just pop out in contrast. Here's a couple of different versions of it, both the original art and how it looked in a reprint form. At this point, Ditko was at his peak of his volumetric drawing. So you can see, you can like want to reach in there and just imagine that you could run your fingers over the wrinkles in this character's face. It feels that 3D. And at the same time, you can go to the other end of the spectrum and have things that look like they were jotted off in a second. Here, another magazine that, is just sort of bleached out. The details aren't important. And I think that this idea kind of lends itself to other imagery. thank you, in Ditko's arsenal and other people's, you can see that these figures' faces, which are also small, they're a little bit less in focus in this character. Peter Parker's leaning into this car, and Ditko kind of developed this method where things seem to get so skinny that they sort of disappear out of sight, like the hair in Aunt May's hairline. And this artist here, who's inspired by Ditko, you can see it working its way into his work. The small details here, they feel like sand. That's Sandman's powers. He has a granule like texture of sand going through his body, and all the lines are really light and they fall away. Another example of somebody reading. And here's the example I talked about before, where there's imagery on the page, but it doesn't show up. He says there's photos here and he throws them in disgust, but there's actually nothing on the photos. We'll come back to these as well. More amazing images within the images. So this Fred Lasswell comic, this is from before he did Barney Google. It's really funny, by the way. Tom was reading a little bit that Popeye comic. This comic is so hilarious. It's like some kind of art heist sort story. It's Bunky. Hey, what's the meaning of this? We've been double crossed. I don't know, Vipe. It's the thing that was on the easel. And it's Peter Paul Van Goya. And he gets mad and he destroys it because it's so awful, but it turns out it was actually a masterpiece. And this disreputable hobo character later on is in his home complaining that he doesn't get, I don't get it. I'm in a quarry. What would anybody want with a picture of that ugly brat? And even when I put foot through it, it's weight 10,000 smacks. I got to swipe it again. And here you have the hoi polloi gathered around the amazing painting of this ugly baby. So you can see that here, there's also stuff which is really in focus. This character, his outline is really solid. The bed that he's on is really solid. And then look at how the window, it breaks up before it hits the edge. These characters are far away from us and they're kind of impressionistically drawn, really fast. Occasionally the lines don't quite connect, like right there at the bottom of the doorman's little coat. And that guy's leg disappears behind this dog. And as a whole, they feel a little bit like they're out of focus. Here, the buildings are out of focus. They don't quite reach, the sidewalk it disappears behind the paperboy. So it's the same kind of idea. You got elements that are in focus and elements that are meant to be they're only read by the people in the comic. So, shoot, did I cut out Hyena's stuff? Like I said, I tried to pare this down, but let me go back to my other one really quickly. Miniatures right here. Okay, there we go. So this is a great example of a comic which is never going to overpower the imagery around it. You make this too dark, and all of a sudden the shadows of the page no longer look like the shadows. So Hyena did a really amazing job here of delineating all this stuff. You can read it all, but it also you never feel like it's not on the page. The hairs, the lines of her knee, the textures of the ground are all done darker. So here you see more examples of it. And I'll show you my own personal method of doing this, but I think this is the best example I've ever seen of a comic within a comic. So let me switch to my other screen. Tommy, I think I'm already allowed to share, but by the way, I'm amazed that this has never happened before, where my drawing icon is refusing to show up. I usually draw while I'm doing the demos, and this is just flabbergasting to me, but I'll draw on my other screen. Perfect. Okay. Okay, I'm sharing. Great.
All right, we see your palette and your iPad.
Cool, cool. So we're looking at an object, and I've got Studio Pen, good. I've got somebody and they're holding something which has text on it. I'll say a comic book. My own particular method is that I'll make the lines that are in the outer world more solid. One of my lines I say to my students again and again is it doesn't matter if this figure is drawn like they were doodled on the back of a bar napkin. Just make sure all your lines are connected. That's the first thing, that the first step you take towards believability. It's the reason that outsider art always looks amazing, even if it's the person doesn't know how to draw hands or whatever. It's because they really meant it. As a part of that, they usually go and they try to draw everything really carefully. I'll take these fingers and go right to the edge of the other fingers. But then you have the opportunity that now when there's text in here, this person is reading a comic about an elf. My technique is I go heavier on the edges and then I get lighter in the middle. So I'm going to say that right about here, I'm going to start to fade it out. So I'll draw this elf's ear and I'll put a little hill behind him, and I'll have maybe a flower here, and I'll draw his eye. And then about here, I'm going to start to either make my line thinner or break it up or make my lines incomplete or both. Already I can see it happening. So if he's holding a flower, I'm not as interested in it being completely legible as Hyena is. So that's kind of another school. But I think what people who do this technique have in common, see that it's already really working, is that they all use a level of impressionism. So down here, I've got my hobo my little character walking. I'll give him a bindle and a hat. I know I said it was about an elf, and now I'm saying it's about a traveling tramp or something, but it's too small to really worry about continuity. I could have made this bigger too. I could have made my line thicker over here. So it's thick here, and I might use more shadow over here too. If there's a sun over here, it would be blazing and my lines would go right to the edge of it. These are just all for instances. I do this a little bit differently every time I do the comic. Sometimes I might break up my lines here. I'll break up this mountain behind the figure so he pops out. But for the most part, my darker, heavier, more connected lines are just over here, taking up a little increment of the page. On the other side of this line, the sun is drawn more impressionistically. Whatever they're saying in their text bubble is going to be indistinct and broken. So you get the sense that there's imagery all over this page. Past this point, I don't need to really draw every little thing. In some ways, the less I draw, the more beautiful it is. And then I'll do the same thing over here, like it comes back into focus. It's just my own personal preference. I like to have limits and systems and rules. And so that's my rule that I've given myself. And I've been experimenting with it lately, really inspired by Hyena's comic, which, like I said, has been a really great example of something I've been always interested in. So over here, I'll have a bearded figure, and they have text. They don't need to, text is too small to worry about drawing it. I'll give them sideburns and whatever else I can think of that really fills in this little part of the composition. Sometimes in Hyena's stuff, I noticed that whenever they wanted to do black, they would do it like this. Like if this person had big black eyebrows, instead of going solid, they would do it more like that, just to further guarantee that it's not going to kind of start to, get too dominant and start to overpower the outside of the image. So you could take this as far as you wanted. And I don't want to go too much further. I'll do one more, do a butterfly here. and then I'm going to talk about some other objects. Tom, this part of the class usually only goes to about a half hour, or does it go an hour? The whole thing is an hour, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to go too much longer, but I have a lot to say.
You know, it would be great in a moment or two if you can zoom out all the way again so we can see it all sort of combine. Yeah, it looks so cool when we when we see it. Yeah, so we can see it working in that context. That's so cool.
Exactly. So yeah, I'll just leave it. Well, I'll do a little bit more. Maybe I'll make the butterfly caught in the spider web here, and then I can continue to pan it out. But honestly, this is the most detailed version of this exercise I've ever done. Usually I just do a few slashy lines and then make things a little bit heavier on the edges and try to have some overlap like that. And since, it's up to you how important these images are, it might not be important at all what the images are. It might just be important, like that Hulk cover, that Hulk newspaper that looked like it was in a fake kind of Slavic language, that there's just imagery that's here. So you can set your own limits, but I would recommend making it detailed on the edges and the corners and, less so in the middle. Now, I feel like this lends itself to a technique that we see a lot in comics, which is, things that are in the background or that are a little bit out of focus tend to be lighter. So if this person's in a room, I might break up the window like that. But then this is a kind of a slippery slope for me, because if I start doing this technique, I always feel like then I start to become inhibited and afraid that if I make it too detailed, that it won't look good. And then I end up with badly drawn windows. And I think you can get really detailed here. And I've been struggling to try to figure out what the system is with these older artists. How come Harold Gray can get in there and just shade the bejesus out of this background without it ever doing the thing I just mentioned, which is kind of coming forward too much and overpowering the stuff which is in the foreground? And honestly, I get lost at this all the time. So if we have, I might not be able to get to the other PDF, but that's okay. Because I have a little bit of time left. So I have a system that I broke down for my students, and I identified 6 basic types of shading that I see again and again. Canvas, crop, and resize. And maybe I won't do all of them, but the type of shading is, well, one, I'll go backwards. One is this technique. Harold Gray from Little Orphan Annie would do this all the time. Whatever he's drawing, if he's drawing somebody looking into the distance, again, I will try to connect all my lines. This can be kind of slapdash, but my habit, at least when I'm doing demos, is to try to see if I can go back and just connect all of them. Why isn't that line coming all the way to the pants? Why doesn't this connect? You can kind of sell it as a style, like you can do a sort of a messy overlapping line, but sometimes I like to just force myself to connect all of my lines within reason. My system is that if it's flesh against flesh, like, then the line can break up. For example, if this person has their sleeve rolled up, then sure, the line might do that. But if it's the end of a form, if it's something that a fly could buzz around like that, then there should be a line there should be a closed off line that's going to separate it from everything else in the image. So let's say this is somebody smoking and looking to the distance. One thing Harold Gray would do is, when he would do all of his images, mountains, trees, a wall, a building, a cat, whatever the story is, and his final act in the drawing would be, he'd do a sort of a deep space shadow. You've probably seen this a lot. And it feels like it's I'll make this a little bit higher. It feels like it's the last thing that he draws, and it always pushes everything forward. And of course, you gotta get comfortable with kind of turning off your brain and just kind of relinquishing, the creative part of yourself over to the part of yourself that just is doing this boring chore. And it can become kind of meditative. Go all the way up to the top. And it just seems to push everything forward. Now I've gotten myself in too deep. I have to do this whole thing, unless I go ahead and cheat and put a building here, which is what I'll do. Kind of amazing. It just always works, especially if you have a lot of other interesting overlapping images in the foreground.
Somebody says, I thought things in the far distance should be lighter.
It's crazy. I know what they're saying, and I go back and forth with this all the time. It's all about contrast. You could have a very dark shape back here, right? And you can have a black silhouetted shape back here, like a building. And then you could start the process again, and you could go to a gray. That's a tree, and then have a lighter tree, and then a very light tree. So you can go back and forth, and you'll see this with a lot of the great artists. I'm not sure why. I totally get that it works if you make things get broken up and lighter as they go away, but the opposite principle is also true. And for me, I used to find that idea both, it's a slippery slope. I found it really helpful, but it also kind of choked my art for a while. So here, and I won't do all of these, but I'll show you a couple of the basic types of shading that I broke down for my students. And then we'll start to look at your work, I think. Right, Tom?
Well, I think we probably need a specific exercise to work on while you're.
Yeah, okay, so everybody, think about, I've already talked about drawing a couple of objects. Now, we talked about drawing objects that have print on them. We're talking about, now let's talk about how to draw just basic objects. And this kind of goes, this can go hand in hand with the lecture that I'm doing about shading. So let's say somebody's holding a block. Let's say it's a piece of fudge. Or maybe an old, I don't know, some kind of architectural fragment. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I always find that when I was in school and you focus just on shadow, that you could draw very convincingly and really have the patience to get in there into the nooks and crannies and draw something that was shaded really well, right? And then as soon as you're like, I need to draw a specific object, I need it to be a piece of porcelain, I need it to be my iPhone or whatever, it's almost like the two things start to work against each other. You might be okay drawing a cylinder, but if you're drawing a thread of hair, which is basically a cylindrical shape, you might not be as comfortable doing it. So I'm going to recommend that you think of a character with an object, and it can go back to the idea I talked about before about you doing a narrative that has to do with objects that we exchange, any kind of permutation of that theme that you want, or you can just simply do a sort of a standalone image like I am now. I mean, if I write the word precious object here, then voila, I have a precious object. But it's an old C scroll, it's whatever it is. So this is the type of shading, everybody, that I've managed to break down for my students. And Tom, just interrupt me if I go on too long. But the first one on the list, after the deep space one, which will go really well with this image, whatever I'm struggling to draw here, deep space shadows will work with it. The first one I do is what I call tile shadows. Just like you're laying down floor tile. So if I'm having a character, this is really no different from what I just drew. If I'm having a character contemplate a massive monolith, one technique that we can do is shade it in rows. Let them touch each other, go right to the very edge of the form. If this is getting partially overlapped with mud or grass, then it looks like the monolith is really dug into the ground. My method of shading, and I just cracked the code on this year. I learned a lot from teaching and explaining to my students, and this was no exception. So I started to notice that when I draw value scales, it was really meditative and really allowed me to have a patience that I didn't have otherwise. And plus, I really liked the way the value scales looked. And so if I do this and I go, I'll stop this one halfway, but I'm doing these in rows as if they're, strips like this, like I'm mowing a lawn. And now what I'm going to do is add cross contour. And like somebody in prison marking days off a calendar, I'm just doing this and another row and another row. So when I do this, already the magic is working. See that? It's kind of amazing. It really looks dimensional. And this is, I call it tiling because you put it down in segments like somebody laying down for bathroom tiles. So I did it on the front of this monolith, but I could have done it on the side. Row, this is small, so make my thing a little bit small, my tool a little bit smaller. Row, 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 row. And then these are my little segmented areas. And when I put my cross contour on, I'm going to do those in segments as well. 3 or 4 lines, 3 or 4 lines. You can also have this area, the cross contour, gradually fade out so they start to appear more patchy. And again, you just get a beautiful shadow this way. This is something I feel like all the old masters that I love, all the 1920s artists and anybody like Robert Armstrong who really understands cross-hatching, they all somehow, have incorporated this very old tradition into their work. There's a third row and it just looks, you feel like you could pick this up. So maybe this is a monolith. Maybe it's a tiny sugar cube. Maybe it's the smallest present in the world. I just would make the edge smoother and put a ribbon on it. And, it starts to be whatever I want it to be. Cool thing about this is you can also do it on round shapes. So big fan of drawing fingers. Let's say this person is holding a tiny little letter I or an upside down exclamation point. And I want to write a narrative here. I've always been excitable. And I could do the same pattern here. This time I'm going to choose to do the exact same thing, except I'm going to do it on the, what is a finger? It's kind of cone shaped. It's round, whatever it is. I define it either like this, like a cone, or maybe like a cylinder with a dome on top of it, whatever it is. And there's the exact same pattern. With shadows, I like to fade them out, everybody, like this. I usually say that shadows are kind of a study in two opposites. One side is really clean. This line is super clean and sharp, where it ends right at the edge of the digit. And here at the edge of the finger. And over here, it's really soft and open. Now, this is another thing that I would talk about if I had, if I wanted to really stretch out. Tom, should I start to? I want to interrupt myself because I don't want to get self-indulgent. Should I start to review other people's work?
Maybe give it a little more time.
Awesome. Let me switch to my other screen really quick. So this is, again, a new technique that I'm just excited about whatever I've taught the most recently. And resume share, stop share, full screen, desktop. I'm going to show you this lecture I've been giving on V.T. Hamlin. So V.T. Hamlin, the great architect of alley-oop, what I figured out about his work, by the way, here's all my types of hatching. Patchy, we've talked about. We haven't talked about 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Oh, but we did talk about 2. 2 is the background shading. And we'll take a look for that. So we'll see how long it takes us to see the background shading. Well, first of all, here's the patchy shading. See that on that wall, that beautiful wall right there? It's done. You can see where there's a little bit of overlap where the artist stopped their pen, and it just stops your eye a little bit. This is rounded. Look how dimensional this dinosaur is. Look at the way that this woman here who looks like Clara Bow. It's kind of hilarious. It's a 1939 comic, but the cave women all look like silent film movie stars. And you can see that he chose to just shade like 3 elements. This guy's face, his tunic, maybe the dinosaur, and he left everything out. So whenever it looks like the artist is leaving a ton of work for himself, you actually see that he's giving himself tasks. Usually there's 5 areas maximum that are shaded. So here he decided this dragon was going to be shaded, the inside of the cave, underneath the dragon, the smoke, this rock here. We're running out, and this rock here. Everything else is very open. And this is something, here's his very early work. And this is actually a comic about the Lindenberg baby kidnapping. You can see the system in place here. He gave himself a limit. This guy's vest is getting shaded. This house is getting shaded. This figure is getting shaded. And this guy's coat, I'm going to shade half of it and form a really beautiful gradient. This one's the same thing. This guy's helmet. So one assignment I give my students is draw a scene, put 4 objects in it, and then just pick arbitrary things to shade. And then they make the other things pop out. And in his work, another thing he does is he keeps on alternating the shading. He'll have straight shading, like really nice streamlined shading here on Alley Oop's pants, and then this kind of rounded cross hatching here. Loves to shade the dinosaurs. When I was a kid, I love this. Look at how simple all of these are. When you zoom in, view, slideshow. This is a very complete looking composition, but he shaded very few elements. He seems to save shading the skin for last. Everybody's skin is very like plain. So the background, this rock here underneath Alley Oop's foot. So that would be the assignment that I would give people. I would say pick an object, draw it. It might be a single frame or it might be a narrative. Before class, I started to brainstorm about different gifts that I was given in the past, and I thought I would shade some of them in class, but I've already gone on for so long that I'm not going to get. I'll do it privately, or I'll do it after the class, if at all. By the way, this is the replacement for VT Hamlin. Tom, you're my age, so I don't know if you remember this when you were a kid, but like in 1978, I was obsessed with Alley Oop. And the guy does a really good approximation of VT Hamlin's style. And I'm positive this is the guy I was looking at. This is 1975. I remember before 3rd grade, just really getting strung out on Alley Oop, and it just being their drawing just being perfect for my sensibility. It still is. And these days, you know how it is, people pass a comic on to somebody else, and the old methods are really lost in translation. You see what happened with Gasoline Alley as it changed hands. This is a really good passing of the baton. I almost had trouble telling that this wasn't VT Ham. I actually thought VT Hamlin did the comic from the early 30s until the 70s. And he lived till, I think he lived till the 90s. I think. No, I'm thinking of CC Beck. I don't know when he died, but he wasn't working on it.
Somebody's asking why they have tails.
I do not know why they have tails. I assume it's a sex thing. It's a joke. So they oh yeah, I think everybody's laughing, but all the windows are muted. So anyways, this one also, the tree is like really this is a really complex looking one. And if you zoom in, it's another example from just choosing to shade very few elements. Okay, so I can zoom in. The tree's shaded, but not the vine. The roots are shaded. Every dinosaur gets one shadow, and the background is shaded. And that's kind of it, you know? Alley-oop isn't shaded at all. And the shadows give the light parts more, you know, dimension, more authority. Okay, so here's the background shadows. You can see how common it is. Right there, you've got the little stacked up Ain't I a Little Devil has that little background shadow, Al Smith. It's there too, right behind that balloon. Here's a crosshatch version, not exactly the background shadow, but here it is in Crazy Cat. Here it is in Annie. So you see what I mean? He drew the bejesus out of this pipe, and he did a beautiful job of hatching on these bushes, and he did the stippling on this cliff. Again, examples where everything is shaded slightly differently, so they contrast with each other. And then when he doesn't know what to do, so he just puts in a kind of a moody gray sky in the background, always stacking up the lines in that tiling method. Sometimes he does it as a crosshatch, so there's not just one manner, but feels like, see, there it is again. So why is this so good? I love the shading on this figure here. And he's really the only really volumetrically shaded element, except for maybe this guy's coat in the entire image. And it just works beautifully. So real quick, I'll go down the list and then please just interrupt me if people want to share work. Or you can, or interrupt me now if you want. Otherwise, I'll go back to this. So I have that real quick list, and the list of types of shading were recent. Okay, we've got round shading. And VT Hamlin would do this on all those dinosaurs' necks. He would really get in there, just do super basic shading, like kind of logical. Like, well, something is round, so I'll have these lines either go around like this or around in patches, kind of like the tile pattern, or maybe both, where maybe as they get deeper, like you get deeper into the grooves of this tree, the lines get closer together or more swooping or whatever. But it's super basic. It's just round shapes around round forms. Then you've got round versus straight. So I have a curving line. And this is something that David Mazzucchelli said to our class when I was at SVA. Whenever you have straight over round, it always looks 3D. Then you've got round versus round. So unlike what I did here, you see what I mean? I did a pattern where the lines are just straight. And then I'm doing another pattern where the lines are round. Just, I feel like it's dealer's choice. Maybe this says something about how the objects look as they get closer to us. I might even do a branch down here that's shaded really lightly or with a thinner line. And my shading works because I'm just following really basic kind of concepts of shapes. I think about shadows being shaped like the same way clouds are, just nice organic shapes. So if you do this, like a comma, or like a teardrop, or like a crescent, or like even a cone, all of those could be plausible shadows. So if I put a random shadow like this, it works because it's kind of rising and falling. And these are the same thing. They rise and fall like a kind of a silhouette of a whale. And having one on them is fine. I could go on all day with this, getting deeper and deeper and deeper, but it seems to be working just at this few, kind of isolated shadows. So again, if you are doing an image, or a story, it's about an object, see if it helps to draw it as a really basic shape, or to have a part of it that's basic and kind of a what do you call it? A primary shape, like a and then have a more complicated shape on top of it. If this is like an amazing statue, this is somebody's lost Oscar or their statue for their Ignatz Award or whatever it is, I can just get in there and shade the parts of it that I won't get confused on. Cool. JM Hunter wants to share. Absolutely. So Tom, how do we do this? How do we let people share? Just like have them, I stopped sharing.
Yeah, I like that. I like what you said about dealer's choice. I think there's always a right answer to how you got to hatch things or how you got to shade things or whatever, but you make it seem like you can make some fanciful decisions and it still might work. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, I got to say, it's like these systems work beautifully for short periods. And then when I just did a comic yesterday, I was doing one before the class started. I still get lost all the time because I start to get interested in other techniques. I mean, this doesn't allow for, all those big, beautiful, lush lines that you saw Harold Gray doing. That's also very effective. And I can get really into that. And then I'm starting to pull everything but the kitchen sink into my work, and it starts to fall apart.
Well, that's a fun drawing there. So yeah, if we want to take a look at what people are doing and maybe get a little feedback, what you'd have to do is just stop screen sharing. Yep. And then anyone who wants to show, JM mentioned it, all you got to do is raise your Zoom hand and we'll call on you right away. And we'll start with Marlene. That's awesome. Marlene's usually towards the end. I'm glad to see you. Here we go. We'll play Spotlight. There's Marlene.
That's a bit of a shock there. But anyway, I'm into ancient history, and what you've said, the host, sorry, I've forgotten your name, Josh.
Josh, yeah, hi.
Hi, Josh. Thank you for having me. The cross-action, excuse me, I've got COVID, I'm trying to speak.
Oh no, Marlene.
Yeah, so I try to incorporate it in my art, comic art today. So the ancient history that I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to take my background off to make it easier. So just bear with me, please. I think that should be better.
Awesome.
Okay, so I started off with this is a very crazy emperor called Emperor Caligula. I'm just verifying his name. Caligula, sorry, Emperor Caligula. And he is a despot, a successor to Tiberius, the emperor in Rome. And he was obsessed with his power. Mm-hmm. His dad, Germanicus, for those of you perhaps know the history, his dad was a general under Augustus and then Tiberius, and taught him all the ins and outs of warfare. And so you can see his legion passing by, very orderly, with the leader in front and him looking on, admiring their prowess. So I've written in the bubble, Hail Emperor Caligula. It's 37, and in Latin, Anno Domini, which means before Christ. 37 years before the birth of Christ. This is what happened.
Oh, I love how specific it is.
Sorry?
I love how specific it is.
Yeah, thank you. And then the next bit, this one here, I specifically chose the frames to have different sizes where they go off into battle. The reason why I drew it also uniformly is to depict, how the Romans stressed discipline in their army. So he says to them as they pass by, my legions, prepare for battle. Draw your scopums and your pilums. That means your shields and your swords.
Mm.
And, you know, they are sort of so dedicated to him and his power and to win more land in Europe. The next frame.
Is this like a passion project of yours? Is this something you've been working on for a while?
Yeah, I've been studying ancient history for a fair bit with other people, and I saw a movie about him on Netflix, and I thought it would be a good idea to use you know, the information today to apply it in a comic form. And then you can see here I've actually gone into a bit more detail about what happened on the battlefield, where you can see one sword I borrowed from Tom's idea, with a sword, you know, filled with blood, the axe, and someone is being massacred in the process. So this is a little bit of study from the Sergeant's project that I'm doing with Tom.
Awesome.
Thank you. Then this bit, he conquers and has an eye on the rest of Europe. And you can see my little symbols where he wants to dominate parts of Bulgaria, the two islands off the coast of Italy. You can see the little bit of a boot of Italy with Sicily and Crete. And there he becomes a madman obsessed with power, and didn't listen to anybody very carefully. Unfortunately, he was a sex deviant too, but that's a story for another day. And he did some silly things, so I'll leave that to your imagination to follow up. And he says, onwards and upwards, as he sits on his horse in a cartoon style. And I try to draw some hatching as he sits on the horse, just to make it more clear. Finally, Roman legions, he says, my rule is supreme. And as a despot, this is what he believes in, with a little bit of hatching again on his tunic and his arm up and his optimism in his madness. But his reign was very short-lived. So this is my contribution today. Merry Christmas, everyone. And
Merry
thank
Christmas.
you.
It feels like that doorway in the last frame, that'd be a really good spot to do a little bit of a cross-hatching gradient, especially maybe either right behind his hand or right at the bottom.
I'll try it out. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll go to Nina, Christina, and JM, and we might lose Josh at 8 o'clock, but we might have Hyena come in and do some checking in on us. So anyway, let's go to Nina. There we go. Thanks, Marlene.
Hey, everybody. My internet has been unstable, so if I disappear, that's what happened. Hey, Josh, this was awesome. I love playing with different pens, so this was just goofing around with a Japanese brush pen, and I love the thick and thin of it. This is the Pentel one, and I just wanted to share a funny pen that cross hatches that I play with a lot. This was just real fast. Did this in about 2 minutes.
That's great.
I took a, this was something my friend Heinrich Drescher did. I took an eyebrow, you know, the things for drawing eyebrows, which of course I don't have eyebrows. So I pulled the little felt liner out of it and put it into this Pentel permanent pen. And I get really amazing stuff with using this for cross hatching. So this was just like a 2-minute little doodle, but it's great for cross hatching.
Amazing. Yeah, I love that. It actually, I used to work with Henrik, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We both had the same publisher in the way back in the day.
Yeah, the drawing actually has a lot of the same energy as that Robert Armstrong image I was showing before. The pod, I mean.
Yeah, no, there's so much great stuff. It's just, and art, I was a huge Art Crumb fan as a kid, and I dip pen and ink. Yeah, you know, always was my favorite. Hard to do that here though.
With using pen and ink on the Zoom call, you think?
Yeah, dip pen and ink. I would just be, because I can't see, I need glasses for drawing. I would have ink everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. You saw me doing so much digital stuff tonight, and I'm like you. I look at all the stuff that's 70 years old, and that's where my orientation is. But I'm just like everybody else. I'm really getting into Procreate.
I am too, but I still like dip pen and ink. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, everybody. I have a weird emergency I didn't expect. I'm going to tip out, but I'm going to have Hyena take over for me. I have the incredible luxury of having super talented another artist here, and I'm going to head out. And thank you all so much for working with me. I look forward to seeing the video of the class.
It's all right, Josh. Is Hyena, are you there?
She has to join, and
you have to stop your audio.
I will.
Just a second.
So I'm gonna peace out.
Okay. Oh, because they have because they're actually in the same room. So, and then Hyena, raise your Zoom hand when you get a chance if you're not, and then we'll take.
I don't know how to do that.
All right.
I'm on my iPad and I usually use my laptop for Zoom, so I'm kind of.
Maybe somebody on the iPad can put that in the chat how to do it. I know it's under reactions, but okay, let's take a look. We did Nina. Let's go to, I think Christina's next. We'll just pull it up. Yep. We'll pull up Christina, and then JM, then Chris, then Jackie. Here we go, Christina.
So I just, it's nice to give yourself just some time and the excuse to play and just do a thing. And then I just sort of treated it like an embroidery sampler, and, you know, shaded the trees this way and shaded the hillside that way, and did some of the tiling he was talking about, and just sort of play around and do all kinds of stuff. And then, you know, chances are you'll find one nugget that you can pull out and use in your next project. But it was fun to just have something that didn't matter. You know, give yourself leeway to play.
Josh is definitely the teacher that you want. If you want like an embroidery sampler of techniques in a very brief period. He's kind of like an agent of chaos who will just bombard you with techniques.
I love that. It's related to embroidery. All right, we'll go to JM next. Thanks so much, Christina. There we go.
How's it going?
Good. Thank you.
Okay. So just did mine on the iPad.
Cool.
It
definitely, it's really cool to see how even, you know, like the same techniques that you can employ, and like Josh was saying, those like 150-year-old cartoons, you can still see digitally. It's, you know, the same strategies. That's really great. That's such a great sense of space.
Thank you. Yeah, I had the pleasure or honor of being my old mentor Ed Luce told me to look at Josh's work, and I was already friends with Josh on Facebook and social media when doing my own MFA, you know, thesis back in the day. So
nice.
So it was cool, and I always follow Josh's. I love his aesthetic. So, but
me too.
Yeah.
Awesome, JM. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're gonna go to Chris next, then Jackie, then Brady. Let's see. It was about food last week. Chris, is it about food this week? Let's find out. Are you still muted? Let me see if I can unmute you. Sorry about that. Try it now.
Got it. Okay, thanks. Yeah, so this was a simple one. Just this person is exchanging gifts with R2D2, and they're saying this device will change your life. And it was supposed to be a ukulele, but I drew it as big as a guitar. So, but at least for the cross hatching was kind of fun, trying to see the different parts of the guitar or the ukulele.
It's definitely effective, those highlights and shadows that you have on the side. I think that really like sells. You like look at it and instantly know it's a guitar / ukulele. You know, handheld string instrument of yeah.
Yeah.
And I would put like a this machine, you know, like a to do a play on the this machine kills fascists, like written on the
Yeah.
car. You know, they made like this machine blows up Death Stars.
Right, that's a good one. Yeah, great idea.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. We'll go to Jackie next. Let's see. You should be able to unmute. There we go.
There we go. So I did for the object of my exchange was this time of year through my Chicago Zine Club. We do a zine club at the end of the year and exchange it with a rando person that they picked. So it is me exchanging the zine, and I tried, you know, again, like the embroidery sampler, I tried some of the, you know, the space junk up here and the round cross hatching with the round shading with the straight shading. I tried to tile. I don't, anyway. So then here's my zine, which I did a little bit of the writing and drawing stuff, like making the stuff near the edges more visible.
Yeah, definitely hitting all the notes of the lecture. That's awesome. I love like the way that the hair almost moves just because there's like such dense like mark making. It's what I like to call chatter, when you like fill something in with like a small pen and but like little white bits come through. But yeah, just such a great like variety of technique. The embroidery sampler of Josh Baer.
Yeah, you even did the writing and on the magazine. Love it. Cool.
So, yeah. Thanks.
Thanks. We'll go to Brady or Shannon. Sorry. Let's see. I'm gonna unmute. There we go. And replace. Oh,
You're still muted.
Still muted, Brady. Try it. Try and
There you go.
there we go.
So when I was in Africa, I had someone give me a gift of it was kind of this mask here. So I just thought I'd sort of draw that. From what I got out of the lecture was a lot of sort of positive negative play, and I wanted to use this as an excuse to use a brush. So that's it.
I think it's super effective. I love the really expressionistic way the brush is like, you know, kind of fading from that like beautiful ink black to the dry brushing. And yeah, especially where you've done it on the mask itself, but not kind of overdone it, where you're like getting to kind of in love with like how cool this technique is, like I always do with dry brushing. But yeah, just like great volume and just so simple. It's the kind of cartooning I really love, just like black and white.
Great, thanks.
Thanks so much. All right, I think Nader's next. Let's see, ask to unmute. Replace. There we go.
Fantastic. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. Let me see if I can light this so it's not. Yeah, so I typically end up doing too much of too many line things in my stuff, and it just kind of blends it out. And so this was a fun practice to really utilize those different shape languages and line qualities and weights to try to get, I don't know, distinction between characters and foregrounds.
I think you definitely nailed it, especially the way that you have the lines on the top of the buildings and then they kind of fade down. So when they intersect with the top outline of that bush, you know, or similarly, you're not trying to render all the grass in the space between the two figures. And trying to think, I know that I recognize both Hernandez brothers and R. Crumb do that kind of technique where they'll fade you know, like almost not have the lines touching, not have these areas of density butting up against each other. And it creates like such a separation with so little effort. But I think it's like, yeah, totally nailing this kind of like organizational separation of techniques into like, you know, units.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thank
The
you.
contrast on that character on the bench, or rather the bench behind him, great too, right, Hyena?
Yes. And the like the way that the black sky and the black and that's a good example of like things, blackness in the far background, but also in the foreground. But because you've got that area of space where you're not rendering the grass, it like totally works. It creates a great sense of balance.
Cool. Well, thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, we'll go to Ken next.
Hey, hello.
Hey.
So I kind of focused on the kind of choosing the level of detail depending on distance, and the way I went about that was this.
Oh, cool. Okay, there you go. Now it's focusing.
Is it in focus now? Okay.
Yeah. I think
So it's just, yeah.
I love that. Everybody's on Tinder or Instagram or whatever it is.
Yeah. It was an attempt at TikTok, and you know, I just sort of, it was like a exercise in kind of choosing the level of detail for each screen. And then, you know, the joke is that they're all watching the exact same thing on their phone, which of course no one ever is. Everyone's in their own little world. So
as long as they aren't watching it with the volume turned in public, like go for it. But yeah, no, another like nailed the exercise of like, how do you make a decision of what images get primacy and how that affects how it's read, and how to, you know, keep it from becoming just a confusing jumble of too much information.
Right.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ken. We'll go to Holy Diode next. Let's see, ask to unmute. Let's see if.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, hang on a second. There we go.
Perfect. All right, so there we go. Showing my iPad here.
We can see it.
All right, nice. There's a bit of a glare, but there we go.
Yeah, I can definitely see all of those different, a lot of people choosing to do phones. I love this. Yeah, a lot of the different, just playing around with the techniques of rendering that Josh is so, has such a grab bag of every time. I love the way that the hand that's holding the phone, I love the way it's shaded. I don't know if it's supposed to be, because it's kind of like a glare, so it's coming in and out of my focus, but I don't know if it's supposed to be like kind of robotic or abstract, but it definitely looks like it's made up of like a block thing. Yeah, but it's like the way that the edges are shaded in is just like, yeah, it reads so well, especially against the more scratchiness of the far background. It's like another good way to use different rendering techniques to delineate different depths of the visual plane, if that makes sense. If I'm being articulate there, I might not be.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, the different shading techniques are really interesting. So thanks, Josh. Thanks, Hyena.
Thanks. All right, we'll see. We'll go to Kate next, and then Umi, and then maybe Jamie's around. We'll find out. Let's see.
Hi.
Hey.
So mine was the 1980s puffer jacket, but not the right kind.
I feel like that happened to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I was just playing around with the tissue. I don't think it really worked, but I was trying to figure out how you would do, I don't know, tissue seems very complicated in terms of shading and.
No, it totally works, especially in the extreme foreground and left corner. The way that you have how kind of like when you get tissue paper all folded up. Yeah. And then you put it in the box and you like blah, 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 but it's still got those creases in it. So I'm reading that. It's like paper, crumpled paper, like rumpled blankets, like those kinds of things, or just one of those, you can like endlessly render it and there's endless strategies. And sometimes you can know exactly what you're doing and go too far. And so it's, yeah, it's always tough to know how to do those things, but I completely buy it. It looks exactly like tissue paper the second you look at it.
Thanks.
What kind of puffer jacket was it? I have to know now.
It had like, it was white and then it had like knit here that had like red and reindeer and snowflakes, and then it had a sweater that matched it that you were supposed to wear as a set, and it was like, no, that's the wrong kind.
Like a
when you're
outfit,
in 8th
right?
grade or whatever, it was the wrong kind.
Awesome, great, thanks. We're gonna go to Umi next. Let's see, there's Umi. Oh,
sorry, I just jumped out of my bed. So I think when I got into your workshop, I didn't get what it was. So I thought like, oh, somebody should be reading. And I started thinking what I have read and all the things that I have been doing this past 2 months was like little, like, do you see it? Like a little drawing like this and like architectural drawings.
Oh, cool.
So I put them into, then I realized like, oh, this is about hatching. This is about hatching. So how can I incorporate these images of me being on a train, looking at in the window, I see what a house inside of the house, and then the train goes this way. So what is passing is the architecture of the past that around here on the background, I see a bridge collapsed by an earthquake. This is what I done. So I pasted these things into a train. Then I started hatching. So the hatching was so last minute. So I'm sorry. Like this is
no. I'll tell you a secret, and then it's Josh never can decide on what the lessons are going to be about. So they're kind of just like an explosion of things. So there's no wrong way to do a Josh Bayer lesson. You totally nailed it. I wish you could see this too, because it's like the kind of really like very urgent, bold with your blacks, that you would really appreciate that. But yeah, I think it looks great. And you have, with the hatching, you have again, like that difference of you have something that's like flat black against something that's like more delicate against something that has more of like a medium density, and it all creates a separation. I love the idea of incorporating like, into the subway ads, into like what's going on out the window, these more delicate drawings. It's like magical realism. Like it's great. Yeah.
Thank you. This looks like so much like, because of the hatching, it looks like a subway mushroomy, or I don't know, marshmallowy, but it's not marshmallow subway. It's actually the train goes outside. So it looks cleaner and squarier. But
oh, gotcha.
But I realized the hatching was the last thing. So yeah, like I really like the workshop, and I'm so amazed by like all the examples. So like I use too much time for that. So thank you so much.
It's yeah, Josh is the same way, and he's teaching it. It's enthusiasm.
This is fun. I mean, everything is fun, but this is fun too.
Thanks, Umi.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go to Maria next. Let's see. Ask her. Replace.
Hi there.
Hey.
I basically just drew like a little still life of what was on the table next to me, but I used a pencil. So unfortunately, most of the line, and I used a HB pencil, so the things kind of got smeared together. But anyway, I had fun doing it. I learned a lot about, all the different ways that you can create shadows, and it was a lot of fun. So thanks very much.
I love that perfume. I think it's like a perfume bottle or an inkwell, or but like the glass, the cup.
Yeah,
glass,
I really didn't capture it. It's the coolest thing.
No, I think you did. I knew exactly like what shape it was and what the inner reservoir looked like. I think it's great. That's so cool.
Thanks.
Cool. We'll go to Cheryl next, and then I think Jamie, and then that'll be it. Let's see. Next time.
So I drew a box of Canadian chocolates that have this very distinct box that someone gave me in high school, and I was super excited. I'm like, oh my goodness, how did you know that was my favorite chocolate? And she's like, it's not what you think. And I opened it up, and it was a bunch of handwritten notes.
Oh, that's heartfelt, right? I love I think my favorite, like, of all the different hatching techniques you have, I think my favorite one is panel 2, where it's like that kind of like tapered from like a density to a skinny line. It's just like a great effect. It's like a great kind of like narrowing in, focusing effect.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks so much, Cheryl. We'll see if Jamie is around. Jamie, if you got anything for us, you got to let us know now. I don't know if she's around. Oh, and you know what? I'd have to ask her to unmute anyway. Anybody see Jamie? There. Meanwhile, is she there? Are you there, Jamie? Oh, wait, hang on. I'll spotlight you. All right.
Yeah, there's no cross hatching happening. I got in way too late, but I was like, well, what can you pull out of your ass? And so I tried to just make some kind of a comic. And then, okay, so, and you said exchanging. So that is a punk rocker kid. And he is saying, okay, that dragon is saying, can you please help me fit in better at the office Christmas party? And he says, sure. If you can give my cigarette a light. So he's breathing his fire onto the smoke, and then he's giving him a Rudolph nose to match his already pretty Christmassy outfit. It's very ill-conceived and very ill-executed, but I appreciated being part of it anyway, and I look forward to the replay when I can do it properly. Thank you.
I disagree to the ill-conceived and ill-executed, and I feel like both those characters all the time.
Oh, dear. All right, cool.
I'm going to spotlight you. Thanks for pinch hitting. And I'll tell everybody, Josh has a class up in January. I'll put that in the chat. I think I just did. But also, if you want to work with Hyena, you can do that in June at our next graphic novel intensive. And they're both awesome teachers. So nice to have you here, Hyena. Is Josh in the next room? So if we all unmute and say thank you, will he hear it?
No, he's at the emergency. He got an email in a China class that he was teaching that was supposed to be tomorrow night. They emailed him and were like, oh yeah, by the way, we changed it to tonight. And so he had like 5 minutes to run downstairs and teach a class of Chinese students. With the time difference, I think it's like 8 or 8:30 in the morning there. So it's always like starts a little bit late, but
so he's not going to hear us say goodbye. But
no, I can hear him lecturing downstairs.
We can at least say thank you to Hyena. We can also wave to Umi's cat. If you're missing Umi's cat in the, you know what? Maybe we'll replace the spotlight there. There's Umi's cat. Happy holiday. Holidays are your.
Thanks, Hyena.
Thank you. Thanks, Hyena.
Thanks, Hyena.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you so much. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Take care, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye-bye.